Hey everyone, Nvidia stock has absolutely exploded on the back of the rising popularity of artificial intelligence and Nvidia's leading position in that industry. A lot of investors are asking, has Nvidia stock run up too much too fast? Is it overvalued? And where could Nvidia's stock price be by the end of 2024? It can't have another year like it did in 2023, right? That was too much. Well, I'm going to answer all those questions in this video here, so stay tuned and let's get right into it.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.
All right, to answer where I think Nvidia stock will be in 1 year, I'm going to use several estimates and assumptions. And remember, when we're using these figures, nothing is for certain. Nobody knows for sure what's going to happen in the future. We just use the best numbers we have at our disposal to make our best estimates using our skill, our analysis, and what we've been trained to do as financial analysts. So, the first thing we're going to look at is Nvidia's current stock price, which is $536.14 as of this recording. The next thing we're going to consider is Nvidia's forward price to earnings ratio, and that is 27.16. We're also going to look at the price to earnings ratio, which is 71.24. You might be saying right now, wait a minute, didn't you just give me two different numbers for the same financial metric? And the answer is no. If you look carefully, this is the price to earnings ratio, and this is the price to earnings ratio forward 1 year. The difference between these two is the price to earnings ratio looks at the earnings for the previous 12 months, and the price to earnings forward 1 year looks at the estimated earnings for the next year. How do we get the estimated earnings? We take it from a consensus of Wall Street analysts that are following Nvidia stock. They create their estimates and then we aggregate them and create an analyst consensus. That's what we're going to look at next. So for fiscal year 2024, the consensus estimate from analysts is that Nvidia's earnings per share will come in at $20.50 for 2024. For fiscal year 2025, they estimate that Nvidia's earnings per share will come in at $23.76. It's also important to consider the growth rate of earnings per share and revenue over the next 2 years. And you can see the phenomenal returns Nvidia in fiscal year 2023, where revenue increased by 118% and earnings per share increased by 268%. This is why you hear me say in my videos about Nvidia stock and about its performance in 2023, I say that that performance was justified because the company had the growth to back it up. There was business performance to back it up. It wasn't just the hype from artificial intelligence. That hype turned into tangible financial performance, sales, profits, and cash flow for Nvidia. And that's why I say it was deserved for the company's stock price to perform the way it did in 2023. Moving forward, analysts expect Nvidia to build on that and to grow earnings per share by 66% in 2024, with revenue growing by 56.5%. And then it's expected to slow down in fiscal year 2025 to 17.5% growth on revenue and 15.9% growth in earnings per share. Perhaps analysts are expecting competition to jump in 2024. You've probably already heard all of the announcements from competitors saying they want to enter, they want to participate in the AI chip space. And so that growth rate is expected to slow down come 2025 for Nvidia. And that's important when you're considering valuation because investors are willing to pay a higher price to earnings ratio for companies that are growing or expected to grow at a faster rate. And so with Nvidia, it grew at a faster rate, but it's expected to slow down heading into 2024 and 2025 although it is still expected to grow at a very nice rate for both 2024 and 2025, and even going forward, right? Artificial intelligence is expected to become an industry worth over $1.8 trillion, according to some estimates, by 2030, and it was only worth around 200 billion in 2023. So Nvidia will experience a nice tailwind from the rising effectiveness of AI for several more years to come. So now let's look at my valuation estimate for Nvidia stock going into 2024 and where I think the stock price could be 1 year from now. So if we're looking at just the price to earnings ratio first, and we'll look at price to earnings forward next, remember Nvidia's price to earnings ratio we saw was 71.24, and then we got the earnings per share estimate of $20.50 from analysts in this slide here, $20.50. So that's where I'm getting these numbers from. Okay, so my first case scenario is assuming that Nvidia's price to earnings stays the same throughout 2024, the ratio stays the same, the earnings increase, and the estimated stock price in that scenario would rise to $1,460 by the end of the year, and that's a significant increase from the $536 per share by the end of the year. However, I will say that this scenario is unlikely. The reason Nvidia's price to earnings ratio is so high right now is because of that excellent performance I showed you in 2023. And I showed you that it's expected to slow down in 2024 and in 2025. So I don't think investors will place this high of a multiple on Nvidia stock. Nevertheless, I've created that scenario for you to observe, even though that's not the scenario that I expect. After I share with you all these scenarios, I will share with you the scenario that I most expect. The next one I have here is if investors become even more enthusiastic about Nvidia stock. It's hard to believe that you can get even more enthusiastic in this stock, which is already extremely popular, and the valuation rises to 80, that would increase the stock price to $1,600 and $1,640. But more likely is that this valuation is going to decrease. So let's look at the price to earnings at 50 with the same earnings per share. That would still cause the stock price to increase to $1,025, up from $536. So even in the scenario where the PE falls, which I expect to happen, the stock price still is expected to rise. But if the PE falls significantly to 30, the stock price would only rise to 615, still above where it's at. So in all of these scenarios where the PE is, falling at 50 and 30 down from 71, the stock price is still expected to increase. And the thing that's fueling that stock price increase is profits. It's the growth in earnings per share that's driving that stock price growth, which is where I like to see the stock price growth come from. Not coming from increasing PE, but coming from increasing earnings per share. The next one we'll look at is the PE forward ratio. And if we're using the PE forward ratio, we need to use the earnings per share estimate for 2025, which, remember, I got it from here, $23.76. That's where I'm getting that. And then the PE forward of 27 is currently what Nvidia's stock price is trading for, 27. So that's where I'm getting that. So in that scenario, the stock price rises to $641, a more realistic price increase. But what if the PE forward rises to 40? That would cause the stock price to increase to $950 per share. If the PE forward were to fall to 25, the stock price would rise to $594. If the PE forward were to fall to 20, the stock price would rise to $475 per share. So if you were to ask me where do I expect Nvidia's stock price to be, I would be using the PE forward ratio, and I would estimate it to be between the PE forward of 25 and 27, and the stock price to be between $594 per share and $641 per share by the end of 2024, and that would be a meaningful rise from the $536 per share it's currently trading at. Of course, these are a lot of estimates and assumptions. Like I highlighted, it's not for certain that this will come to fruition, but it's just my estimates using the numbers that I have available. And I will remind you, I have placed Nvidia on my list of top 24 stocks to buy in 2024. I'll link that video at the end of this one. Did you know that over 90% of the people that watch my channel are not subscribed? It'll really help support my channel if you hit that subscribe button. And oh, by the way, one of the benefits of being subscribed is that I take requests from subscribers more often than I do from non-subscribers. So if you prefer that benefit, please subscribe to the channel.